All right, y'all. So check this out. Listen. So today, listen. This is gonna be my last refutation for Vic Dicara until he finally sees this video and sees how I'm like kind of like destroying the majority of his actual points, right? And then he decides to like make another video trying to refute my stuff like he did with Sam Jeffy. But what he doesn't understand is that I'm a person that won't go away because I sit there and listen and watch and dissect every single angle of what you say. And that's what he does as well, right? So if he ever sees this, it's going to become a battle, which I'm sure he's going to eventually see this. And but the thing about it is, I want you all to understand this. And Vic, if you're watching this, or anybody who loves watching Vic Dicara Astrology, I want you all to know this. I do not disagree with Vic Dicara saying that there is a tropical zodiac. I don't disagree with that. There is a tropical zodiac inside of the Syria Sedanta. And like he said, there is a seed for it inside the Badanga Jyotish, right? However, what I disagree with him on is that there is no sidereal zodiac and that you should use tropical zodiac signs for the actual birth chart. Because guess what? In no text at all that we know so far, it says, hey, listen, this is how you calculate the birth chart explicitly, right? Because you got to remember the zodiac signs are tied to what you see right here, right? The equinoxes, right? The inner solstice, the winter solstice, the summer solstice, the vernal equinox points or whatever. That's what the zodiac sign is actually tied to, right? So now this is temporal, right? Or temporal, however you want to say it, right? Now let's scroll down. Whereas you see this right here is sidereal, it's sidereal, right? This is like the sun being mapped to the actual physical constellation path, right? The sun being mapped to the physical constellations path. Do you see that? So this is the thing, right? So now I want you all to look at this with a very, very logical, practical mind, right? So now, because I'm not here to debunk Vic saying that there is a tropical zodiac. I'm here to debunk him saying that that's the one that we should be using for our birth charts in Vedic, because no Vedic literature says at all in any chapter that, you know what, this is how we're going to calculate the birth charts and the horoscopes by using the equinoxes and solstices. I don't see that, right? So the tropical zodiac exists in chapter 14, Sirius Dunta, merely for like calendar things, rituals, stuff like that, right? Ceremonies. That I mean, that's just what it is, right? So now in my last video, I discussed about how he kind of tried to discredit, you know what I'm saying, the terminology of Rasi and the terminology of the zodiac sign, starting from the star of Vedic. And what he says on his video is that, well, everything that's how we divide. That's the geometrical shape. He kind of like try to wordplay his way out of stuff. But listen, but no need to worry, because I have all the evidence to kind of counteract that, right? Because we know Vedic astrology is a myriad of different type of ancient books and texts, right? There's more than one Siddhanta. You got Siddhantikas. You got man, listen, I got a lot of stuff for you all today on this video. What I want you all to understand is that, listen, so we talk about fixed zodiac sign. Let me ask you something. The equinoxes and the ecliptic shift in relation towards each other, right? Right? This is the equinox and solstice. How you see this being mapped right here? However, this right here is the actual ecliptic itself right now. They both merge, right? So look at this. This is the equinox and solstice, right? Right here, summer, winter, spring, fall, however you want to look at it. And this is the ecliptic on top of it. You see what I'm saying? So the ecliptic is connected, but they are two separate things, right? You understand that? So now there's a zodiac, the actual physical zodiac constellations, which were here way before we got here and started naming temporal space, right? The physical zodiac constellations were always here, and they will always remain fixed to the actual sun's path and ecliptic. And that's for a fact. That's another way of looking at the zodiac signs being fixed to the actual ecliptic, because the sun is physically going to go through those signs. That's on the physical path. That is literally the physical path, right? For the actual star-based constellation, right? So, and that's a fix, unless you're gonna say, well, the constellation gonna eventually all together drift off the whole ecliptic line. No, that's like the fixed stars with the nakshatras, but I also got something for that as well too. So I want you all to understand that there are multiple ways of looking at fixed, right? So in essence, both of them are fixed. The tropical would be fixed, sidereal would be fixed, right? The only way the sidereal wouldn't be fixed is that you are going to say, well, no, Rex, the constellations are going to eventually not be on the ecliptic at all anymore. That's the, but I'm pretty sure we all should know that that's not true. You understand? So now, let's go ahead and get into it, right? So now, Now that you understand, this is a temporal zodiac, and this is a star-based zodiac, right? This one is like, you know, it's about mathematical zones that aren't in relation to stars. Sidereal zodiac sign is not fully the actual stars, but it is the actual stars, right? It's a mathematical divisions of certain segments of the ecliptic. I want everybody to know that, right? Because check this out. Like Mula, I'm a Mula ascendant. Mula Nakshatra is not physically inside of Sagittarius, although it rules 13 degrees 20 minutes of Sagittarius. So you would ask yourself why, and then all the other zodiac signs are unequal. It's because the way that they are dividing the actual sky, it's almost like they are kind of forcing it to actually fit their system. But guess what? I'm sure that there's a very good logical explanation, right? So they are taking like they are dividing them. They are choosing a certain star, and then they are mapping the zodiac signs off of the actual stars, right? In that actual 12 arc 30-degree segments. For anybody to understand that, hopefully you all understand that truly, right? So, and that's the truth, right? Because like, um, Astrolasia is in the constellation of Hydra. It's not in the actual physical constellation of Cancer, but guess what? The way it's mapped is tying both of those together, right? Because the ecliptic isn't just this one thin line; it's really like a giant segment of their region of space being mapped across the actual stars. And Vic should know this, but now so now that we get that out the way, we understand the difference between temporal zodiac. We understand the difference between sidereal star-based zodiac. So now let me break this down one more time for everybody, right? So the tropical zodiac, as you all can see right now, is basically it is based off of the equinoxes, right? The vernal equinoxes, right, and the winter solstice, right? So now look at this. This is us on Earth, right? And this is the equinoxes and the solstice, right? You see what I'm saying? It's encapsulated in a circular diameter around us, right? But remember, this is not the star portion, right? However, I want you all to understand this. This right here is the ecliptic, right? So this is the solstice and equinoxes. This is the actual ecliptic, right? They are both intertwined, but they are two separate things, right? So there's the zodiac. So the actual physical star constellations of the real true star-based zodiac are on the ecliptic period. And they will always be fixed to that, right? However, the tropical zodiac sign is about is about seasonal divisional portions of how they map the zodiac sign based off of the summer, winter, spring, and fall aspect, right? For the planet, not different seasons from here or Argentina and stuff like that, right? It's like a planetary season, planetary solar revolutions or whatever. I believe is what you call it. So yeah, that's the difference between tropical and Vedic from a very layman's term basic standpoint. Hopefully you all truly understand, right? That the tropical zodiac is not about the actual stars at all, right? However, sidereal zodiac signs are about the actual stars, which is what Vedic truly is, right? Now, let's get into Vic refutation, right? So sidereal Rashi. Yes, Vic refutation, right? So now below is my pleasant addition and refutation of Victor Carver's statements about the sidereal Rashi not being real and more explicitly used for birth charts. I've already covered how in chapter 1 the series Siddhanta gave Revati as the anchor point for revolutions and how we gave out the full geometrical angle, right? Vic in his video about Sirius Siddhanta's definition of sidereal zodiac had a list of words had a list of what the word Rashi's mean, and there were four meanings, right? And he agreed with all of them except for the one Rashi that said that, the one definition that said Rashi means zodiac. He then said he has a different opinion on it, right? So I question, why does he believe the translation on the first three but not the fourth one? Don't that kind of seem weird to you all? Don't that kind of seem weird? Because it's really to push an agenda, right? Of course, he cannot afford to go back now after all these years, right? So Vic refused to accept the fact that the series Siddhanta has two different ways of looking at the one zodiac, right? I understand the tropical is real. Nobody's debating that there's not a tropical. I agree with that. And guess what? I could also agree with you on the modalities, right? Because guess what? That's still a part of Vedic astrology, right? For all of you strictly Western people who think that that's just Western, understand that Vedic astrology, we already had that long before too, right? So I can agree with that. I think it's because it's still part of Vedic, and I'm a Vedic lover, right? The tropical system is still part of Vedic. It just has a different purpose and a different use, right? So now, what I want you to understand. So now, listen. So yeah, he refused to really accept it, right? So now let's break down some books that are literally showing you how the zodiac signs and the nakshatra are fused together and work side by side, right? Yes, y'all listen. So the thing about it, he don't touch any of these books. And guess what? And I'm just waiting on him to make any type of rebuttal or refutation. Vic, if you watching this or if you a Vic fan, I want you and him to know if you watching this, if you make even one rebuttal, that's all I'm waiting for. Because the thing about it is you are highly analytical. You are a highly analytical person. But I'm also a very highly analytical person. And you finna find that out right now. So now and this text right here, the Brahma, I be saying this, I be saying a lot of these names so butchered. The Brahma Sputa Siddhanta. Hopefully I'm saying that correct. So now this is written by the Indian astronomer, you know what I'm talking about, and mathematician Brahma Gupta. And I hope I'm saying his name correct. So now in chapter 10, it discusses the fusion of sidereal zodiac and sidereal nakshatras, right? Here is the link as well. You can all can click right here. So let me show you this. You can all click over here. Yeah. And then you can go read it for your actual self, right? Listen, go read through these it's 740. Go read through these pages. Like seriously. Yeah, and really, really, really look at them, right? So now, but we can get off that. And I got links for all of them. So now, the nakshatras and their actual starting points, right? So now the text refers to the nakshatras presumably Ashwini and mentions how nakshatras are traditionally placed within the actual sidereal zodiac, right? This ties the nakshatras to the system of the zodiac, as each nakshatra is defined by segments of the actual sky, which is part of the larger sidereal zodiac, right? So now this is what Vic would say to refute that they were lying before. He would say that the nakshatras and the zodiac signs aren't intrinsically together, right? And in a lot of ways, he is 100% correct about that because Mula is 13 degrees minutes of Sagittarius, but it's not even in Sagittarius. He is 100% correct about that. Like the star Astrology, right? It's not physically in Cancer, it's right by Cancer, though. But the star constellation is in is Hydra, right? So when he said they aren't intrinsically linked, in that regard, in that aspect, he is 100% totally accurate. Vic, I thank you so much. But I want you all to understand this, right? The way the Indians have mapped out the actual star calculations. We finna get into that because that matters, but then you finna see why it doesn't matter, right? Because when he is trying to say that there's no reference of sidereal zodiac, when every book that I'm finna read to you on here mentions sidereal zodiac, right? So they are going off of the time when it was aligned, and then I want you to also know this: the constellation and the actual nakshatras are still well close there. Now you can say fixed stars move over time. I got something for all of that. Just wait. So now so in this chapter, so now first nakshatra and zodiac sign reference, right? So now the excerpt mentions that the first nakshatra begins at a specific point in the zodiac, which used to be the first degree of Aries Mesha, right? This connects the nakshatra directly with the signs of the zodiac, right? Especially Aries is a reference point, right? So if you read the actual chapter, it's going to tell you that Ashwini is the 13 degree and 20 minutes of Aries. It's going to tell you that. I will pull it up here, but you just seen how I look. It's so small and but just go look. But that's why I gave you the chapter 10. Go look at it yourself. So now the beginning follows after the last nakshatra, right? The phrase "the beginning follows immediately after the last star." The last nakshatra body indicates that the nakshatras are mapped against the sidereal zodiac constellation, right? Showing their alignment within the sidereal framework. Zodiac measurements and nakshatra divisions, right? So now the text also describes how the first nakshatra as Sweeney occupies the first 13 degree and 20 minutes of Aries Mesha, right? So now this shows the direct correspondence between the nakshatra and the sidereal zodiac sign, right? It's each nakshatra occupies a specific span of degrees within the signs, right? So now the Arabian influence in lunar matches, right? Because the same text that I'm telling y'all, it also mentions how the Arabic people or the Persian Arabic people mapped it with the Indian people, right? So now the Arabic reference to the first lunar mantis or manzil, right, titled Sheraton, further connects the nakshatras with the zodiac, right? So now the mention of Aries at specific degree ranges aligns the system with the broader sidereal zodiac, showing that different cultures also recognize the connection between nakshatra and zodiac signs, right? My claims. nakshatras in the zodiac. So now the reference to nakshatras, especially Ashwini, beginning the first degree of Aries, shows how the nakshatras are embedded within the sidereal zodiac sign, right? So now they are not independent of the zodiac signs. Instead, they are defined by specific degrees within those signs. And what do I mean by they are? Because I just said that they are independent, but they're not. They are independent from a physical aspect, right? However, as far as chart calculations and birth chart readings, they are stationed together. That is what I'm trying to really get you to understand, right? So now, nakshatra to zodiac relationship, right? The fact that the first nakshatra Ashwini begins with the first degree of Aries supports the idea that the nakshatras are a part of the sidereal zodiac, right? I mean, that's just the truth, right? Now, this is what Vic needs to understand. They were fully aligned before, right? And that's when everything was accounted for. He says this, well, chapter 14 says this about, I'm like, Vic, the thing about it is, I'm pretty sure around that time, the sidereal and the tropical were aligned completely, right? So that vernal degree Aries more than likely probably was still the actual sidereal Aries, right? There's no proof to really back it up. But if you have some, I'm more than open to hearing you out and seeing what you have to say. But if you can't really come up with nothing to destroy that, I mean, it is what it is. Now, combining the nakshatras and zodiac in practice, right? So now the text supports the notion that the nakshatras and zodiac signs are not separate systems, but part of the same framework, right? Framework is what you need to understand, right? He's looking at things from a separate aspect, right? I get it, right? The nakshatras are their own stars, zodiac signs are their own constellations. I get what he's saying, even though some of the nakshatras are in the constellations too, right? Some of them aren't, but some of them are, right? But when we talk about framework, we're talking about okay, viewing a certain thing, right? This is separate, this is separate. But when we use them together for a specific thing like birth chart calculations, that creates a new type of framework, right? So now this is significant because it shows that in ancient Indian astronomy and astrology, the zodiac and the nakshatras were considered in conjunction, right? They were, right? And like he said, he even knows this, but he just saying, but forget about that. Because it say the tropical is moving in chapter 14 of Sirius Dante, even though it don't mention no chart calculations at all. And in my last video, I mentioned about how chapter 1 of Sirius Dante and chapter 3 are connected. You know what I'm talking about as far as like calculating Lagna position. And I even addressed the sundial argument, but he's like, well, when those says equinoctial shadow, and this, and Vic is a very, very tough opponent to beat, but I think he's really made his match with me, right? Because I'm going to break it down to where y'all all get it. So now, and their relationship was recognized for what? Accurate astronomical and astrological calculations, right? So, the text from Brahma Sputa, Dante, indeed supports the claim that the nakshatras are tied to the sidereal zodiac, right? And they correspond to different degrees within the zodiac signs. The first nakshatra being placed at the first degree of Aries highlights the integrated system where nakshatras and zodiac signs work together in astronomical and astrological measurements. So now this reinforces the argument that the sidereal zodiac and nakshatras are interconnected and form a unified system for calculating celestial events, as shown in classical texts like this one, right? So now the Arabic people use astrology, so I'm gonna let y'all come and read this on your own. I'm gonna let y'all come read this on your own because I want to get more to the other stuff. So just come read this. But now, so the Brihat Samhita, right, related to zodiac and nakshatras, right? So now the first text on this book. Remember, some of these are different authors. However, by her mirror, we don't get into them, right? But it's showing you that different people had different schools of thoughts, right? But they kind of like merged back to the same concept of unifying the nakshatras and the zodiac for astrological calculations. I'm just being real, right? Because at one point in time they were unified. So Vic is saying, well, just because they were unified in the tropical changes, we should change with it. And I get his viewpoint. Listen, I'm not trying to bash him. I'm trying to show him how he's misunderstanding certain things. You know what I'm saying? Because he does have an agenda he wants to push. It's not. I think it's very obvious, right? So now Brihat Samhita, right, related to zodiac and nakshatras. I seen somebody on his comment section say this, and he was talking about how it's not intrinsic, it's a temporary relationship, and I get what he's saying exactly. I get what he's saying exactly, right? So now, the Brihat Samhita, right, written by Vahamira, right? So now he was an influential Indian astronomer, mathematician, and astrologer who lived during the so-called 6th century, right? So now he is best known for his works in the field of astronomy and astrology, right? Particularly his contributions to Indian astrology, Jyotish, and mathematics, right? His most famous works include what? The Brihat Samhita, which is a comprehensive encyclopedic work covering a variety of topics such as astronomy, astrology, meteorology, and even topics like architecture and omens, right? It is one of the most important texts on Indian astrology, and it is widely referenced in the traditional Indian practices, right? So now, the Brihat Jataka, right, is another book he wrote, right? A text focused specifically on astrology, dealing with the interpretation of horoscopes and the influence of celestial bodies on human affairs, right? So now, page 762 is where you will find it below. I got the link for you all right here. And what you do, just come right over here, click open link and tab, right? On page, oh, hold up. Let me get off that. Oh, well, I'm gonna let that load up for a little bit. Let's I'm not gonna put up stuff if you wanna take a slow time. Oh God. Let's see. Well, y'all just open up. So I'm trying to get to the point of the video. So now, this is the thing. When Vic was like, when he said stuff like this, the nakshatras and the zodiac sign aren't connected. I'm like, at a point in time they were, and guess what? They will be again, right? So Vedic astrology, what it seems to be operating off of, as far as like chart calculations, the birth chart readings or whatever, is still taken into consideration when the zodiac signs and the solstices were still formed, right? Now, that's one way of looking at it, right? That's why they're still using no calculation, right? They just kept it. They like, okay, where they were aligned completely. And it makes sense to really use your birth charts when the stars line and the suns, the equinox and solstices were fully aligned. It makes more sense to make the birth charts of all birth charts off of that, right? That's when everything was in full tandem, right? And it shifts, right? But what he keep not bringing up or not truly really understanding is that that shit will always it will also cycle back, and the tropical and sidereal will once again be lined up again, right? So the thing about it is tropical is divorced from sidereal, but not permanently. That's the thing, right? That is the thing, right? So what you wanna so let me show you this. This means that it is a fixed system that rotates. That's the truth. It is a fixed system that rotates, right? You can look at the tropical aspect or you can look at the sidereal aspect, right? But I want you all to know this. The physical zodiac constellations do remain affixed on the actual sun's ecliptic, right? Like the vernal degree Aries, the equinoxes have shifted right now. We'll start in Pisces, right? We'll get into that a little bit later. But now let's go back to this, right? So now the nakshatras in the zodiac, right, is astronomical reference points, right? And Brihat Samhita nakshatras or lunar mansions in zodiacs, right, are prescribed as a unified system, right? The text explains how the positions of celestial bodies such as the sun, moon, and planets are measured in relation to the zodiac, which is divided into 12, right? And further divided, it's subdivided into the 27 nakshatras. The text confirms that the zodiac and nakshatras are used for predictions and divination, right? Suggesting that the positions of nakshatra within the zodiac signs are integral for accurate astrological calculations, right? Now, zodiac signs is the primary structure. Brihat Samhita often refers to zodiac or Rashi, right, as the primary celestial framework. Understand that, like I was saying earlier. This system is divided into 12 signs, and each occupies 30 degrees of the ecliptic, right? The key insight here is that while the zodiacs are 30 degrees each, the nakshatras occupy specific parts of those 30-degree segments, right? For instance, the text explicitly associates the start of certain nakshatras, right, with the early degrees of zodiac signs. It assigns the first nakshatra Ashwini to the first 2.5 degrees of Aries, Mesha, and so on and so forth, right? So now, the concept of lunar mansions, right? The Brihat Samhita places significant emphasis on lunar mansions, nakshatras, and their importance determining the moon's position relative to the zodiac sign, right? The moon's path, right, through the 27 nakshatras is a key element in traditional Vedic astrology, right, for determining auspicious times, right, or murta, right, rituals and events like marriage, right? So now, the text often cross-references nakshatras with the zodiac signs. For example, when describing the moon's position in certain nakshatras, Brihat Samhita provides detailed descriptions of the signs through which the moon passes. Come on now. Now, the nakshatras and zodiac interdependence, right? Sidereal zodiac is used for calculating planetary positions and systems rooted in fixed stars, right? Brihat Samhita emphasizes the system and reinforces the idea that nakshatras are not arbitrary, but they are fixed to the actual sky, right, with precise relationships to the sidereal zodiac. They are separate things, but in the framework, we're looking at the relationship between them. That's what this nakshatra and zodiac signs are. That's what it's all about, right? So now, as per the nakshatras are mapped against the backdrop of the actual stars and are tied to the 12 signs of the zodiac, right? The connection is crucial for determining the sun's position in particular zodiac, right? And in turn, interpreting its relationship with the nakshatra the sun occupies. So now, nakshatras is subdivisions, right? So now, Brihat Samhita explains that each zodiac sign is divided into 27 equal parts, with each part corresponding to one nakshatra, right? So what you got to understand is this is fundamental to understanding how the nakshatras fit into the larger framework. And I want you to understand each zodiac sign is supposed to be composed of what? 9 different what, you all? 9 different padas, right? So think about it. 27 equal parts. What is 7 plus 2? That is also 9, right? It's 27 nakshatras in the actual framework, and they are all divided by 30-degree segments. You see what I'm saying? Between 9 different parts, right? And I'm trying to show you all how to make this more symbolic connection, right? The 9 is within the Potter framework for the zodiac sign, and the 27 parts, although we do have 28 lunar mansions, however, is not used in this one, right? The 27 equal parts, 7 plus 2 was also 9, right? So now, detailed explanation, right, of how the Brihat Samhita supports your claim, right? So what you got to understand is, so what I got to understand is direct mapping of the nakshatras to zodiac signs, right? The Brihat Samhita illustrates the nakshatras are mapped to the 12 signs of the zodiac and are often used in conjunction with the zodiac, right? So now, for determining astrological events, right? I just want y'all to really understand that, right? So now listen, so the ecliptic, right? So now the concept of the ecliptic, right? The apparent path of the sun is essential to understanding how the Brihat Samhita links nakshatras, right, to the sidereal zodiac. The nakshatras are mapped along the ecliptic and the zodiac signs correspond to different points on this path, right? The sun's position relative to these fixed stars, aka nakshatras, right? Determine which zodiac sign it occupies for forming the foundation for astrological precisions. So now when Vic is saying, oh no, we don't supposed to use them. Then why did Vahamira do it? Why did the other person I just read, Brahmasfuda, I keep saying it. I know I'm butchering the hell out of his name. They used it. They used it. So I'm trying to see. So when he says nowhere, anywhere, I'm like, well, it kind of is somewhere, right? Because the thing what you have to understand about it is, and I'm not speaking 100%, but just generally, I don't think Vic Dicara is a true occultist, right? Because you got to remember, thing about it is astrology is an occult science. Yes, it is, right? But the thing about it is, what he's using is like a lot of astronomical thing and religious stuff to like really like hone in his points, right? However, the occult is much more subtle and much more nuanced, right? There are certain things that he's not going to have access to, right? Like how there are more families that have more keys to this celestial framework of Vedic astrology, right? That don't want to that either don't want to release it up or they just gonna really keep it in high, right? Even KRS mentioned this. There's also supposedly an oral tradition. He says it's not, but there are plenty of different tribes that have oral tradition, right? When it goes to occult work, that is very true, right? The thing about it is, I'm just looking at it from a detailed standpoint. Vic might have somebody in his ear telling him, "Hey, listen, there aren't any oral traditions," but the people he might be talking to, are they really genuine, or are they trying to push their agenda at point two? Because he said he has some Indian people backing him up, but you never know. People are going to be at opposing sides, and everybody has an agenda, right? So he might just be dealing with a team of people who want to push this idea, period. So they might say there is no oral tradition. They're just lying. From a person like me who's a real occultist, I want to tell you, not everything will be told to you by everybody. I always understand that, right? So now let's take a look at this, right? So now the Brihat Samhita supports my claim all the way, right? So now let's go back, let's go down to the Pancha Siddhantika, right? Also wrote by Bahamira, which clearly defines the nakshatra and zodiac signs connected, right? And so, like I said, Vic, I'm not disagreeing about your point about those. I understand the separateness. of the nakshatras from the zodiac signs. However, I also understand the celestial framework that Pontus Sedantica is mentioning, Brihasamita is mentioning, and Brahmasputa is mentioning, right? So now, page 33 discusses the nakshatras and Rashi together. Here's another link, right? So now, the moon and nakshatra Rashi column, right? The text states divide the true moon, right, by 4 and multiply it by 9, right? What we get is the Rashi column, right? So now, is the nakshatra. So now, this process highlights the link between the moon's position in the zodiac and its corresponding nakshatra. The nakshatra span portions of the zodiac, right? And this method shows how you can translate the moon's position into a specific nakshatra by dividing its position by 4 and then multiplying it, by 9, right? So now, this calculation method bridges the gap between the moon degree in the zodiac, the Rashi column, and its corresponding nakshatra, right? Reinforcing what? The idea that the nakshatras and the zodiacs are interconnected in the Pancha Dantika, right? So now, the moon, Murta, and degree column. So what is got in the degree column are the morta, right? So now a morta or murta, have you said, refers to a specific unit of time, approximately 48 minutes. So now the degree column is used to calculate the morta, which relates the moon's movement through the zodiac, right? And it's nakshatra. So now this reflects an interrelationship between the moon's position in the zodiac and its murta, right? Within the nakshatra, right? So now, interpretation. The Murta helps determine the specific timing of rituals, events, or tasks, and is derived directly from the moon's position in the nakshatra as outlined in its actual text. This text also discusses tithis, right? So now, deduct the true sun from the actual moon, divide the result by 2, and then multiply by 5, right? Tithis are got in the Rashi column, right? The 30th, damn, the 30th of Tithis and the degree column, right? So now this calculation gives the Tithis the lunar date based on the moon's position relative to the actual sun, right? You see what I'm saying? And is directly tied to the moon's position in relation to the sun and corresponds to a particular nakshatra in the Rashi column, right? So now I want you all to go read that, right? Listen, go read that whole section, right? When it is 3 Rashis measure the sun plus the 15 duration of the day of the daytime, I want you all to go really read this for your actual self, right? So now, conclusion. Now, the text that I've shared from the Panja Siddhantika, right, supports my claim, that the nakshatras, the zodiac, and tithis, right, are deeply interconnected in Vedic astronomy, right, and astrology, right. So it provides detailed explanation of how the moon's position in the zodiac determines both nakshatras and tithis, right, and how the sun's movement in the zodiac affects other time-related measurements like daytime, nighttime, and midday shadow, right. So yeah, and then also chapter 14 of Panja Siddhantika, right? So remember in my other life where I mentioned essential equivalence in chapter 13, the Sirius Danta calculating it from a tropical perspective, and then Vic tried to say something about the equinoctial shadow and all this. I got you. So now, chapter 14, right, page 261, right? So now the essential differences in the sidereal logna calculation. So in Vedic astrology, the essential difference refers to what? The difference in the apparent rise of a zodiacal sign, right? Right? The apparent rise, right? Apparent meaning, oh, what I can clearly see. That's obviously coming from a sidereal perspective, right? Because you can't physically see the zodiac signs from a tropical perspective, right? But I digress, right? So now, above the horizon at a particular location and time, right? The sidereal log and the calculation involves determining which zodiac sign is rising at the eastern horizon, right? So now, the Panja Sadandika describes the methods for describing the essential differences using geometric construction, right? And mathematical principles. So now, the calculation helps determine how much time has passed in sunrise and the position of the ascendant specific location on Earth. So now, this is crucial in the sidereal system where the ascendant is linked to specific constellations and nakshatras and their movement through the zodiac, right? So now, the key aspects. So now, this is the core principle for determining the correct placement, right, of the lagna in sidereal calculation. The text talks about methods to measure essential differences for various signs, Aries, Taurus, or whatever. So now, and it relates these to the local latitude, right, of the place where the observations are actually made, like from like where you're at. That's how we determine the actual ascendant, right? So now, it's the sidereal ecliptic matching the local ecliptic through the meridian pathway. That's how we come up with your actual ascendant. That's the main meat of the calculation method. latitude adjustment, right? So now the instructions in the Pancha Siddhantika involve creating models, right, that adjust Earth's latitude, which directly impacts how the zodiac signs rise in the exact timing for the ascendant, right? So now the geometrical construction, right, the detailed instruction like constructing a circle with a specific diameter and placing marks on it for the actual signs and degrees, right, directly relate to the calculation of the ascendant, right? And so now these methods are shown how to visualize and adjust for ascensional differences for accurate determination of the login, right? So now the essential difference method described here essentially allows astrologers to determine which zodiac sign is rising from the time of birth, right? Using the sun's position, time of day, and local geographical factors, right? This is crucial for accurate sidereal calculations in astrology as the ascendant directly influences the birth chart, right? And subsequent planetary placements in various different houses, right? So now the Panchas Aduntika indeed support sidereal login calculations through the use of ascensional differences showing how geographical location, latitude, and the actual sun's position and the relation of the signs in the sky affect the calculation of time and the ascendant in the sidereal system, right? So now this is what I want you to understand. So now if you need further clarification or more details, listen, feel free to ask me, right? So now equinoctial shadow and its connection to the tropical zodiac, right? Because that's where he really honed in on that. Because that's like in this debate with me, that was his the core crux of his argument, right? Let's just break that down again. So now, the equinoctial shadow and its connection to the tropical zodiac, right? So now, the equinoctial shadow, the term equinoctial shadow in the Pancha Siddhantika refers to the shadow cast at noon, right? When the sun's at its highest point in the sky. How it's used to calculate angles, right? Time and declination, right? So now, based on the sun's position, right, it relates to the sun's shadow and declination, but this does not imply a tropical system, right? Now, tropical versus sidereal. The tropical zodiac is based off the sun's position. I think you already understand that, right? But now let's go down. So now, the Pancha Siddhantika merged the zodiac and nakshatra, which I've showed you all twice in the actual book, right? So now, that's the thing about it. So now, the clarification. So now, the reference to equinoctial shadow at noon, this is a method to observe the sun's declination and adjust for time during the day, but it doesn't imply the system is tropical. So now, the declinations are used to calculate sidereal positions relative to the actual fixed stars, right, and the nakshatras, right, which are central to the sidereal system, right. So now, in the Pancha Siddhantika, the zodiac and rashis are used together in sidereal calculation, right. Even though tropical elements such as equinox and shadow are mentioned, they are more about measurement tools, not a Swiss tropical system, right? So now, Sloka 7 of the Jataka Parijata. I believe that's how you say that, right? Just go down and reread that. Sloka 7, right? What it saying? It said Kriya or another terminology of Aries and other zodiac signs in the heavens consist of 9 quarters of stars, right? Starting from what? Ashwini, right? Go look at that. 9 quarters, right? I'm just saying, right? It's saying that basically what it's saying is that the zodiac sign is made out of 9 parts, like I was saying earlier, right? Why does this support my case, right? This directly shows nakshatras and zodiac signs are interlinked in sidereal astrology. We have 27 nakshatras, 4 parts, which equal 108 parts, right? So now 108 parts divided by 12 signs equals what? 9 parts per sign, right? So each Rashi is based on fixed stars, not equinoxes. This is for the chart calculation, right? So now sidereal versus tropical. Sidereal based on stars, Ashwini to Ravati. Tropical based on equinox, right? With arrow with 0 in Aries, 0 degree Aries, right? So now this is the thing, right? So now let's go to my second one, right? Oh look, man, y'all thought this was over? Oh no, it's not over yet. It's not over yet, right? So now let's go right here. Tropical for chart calculations, Vedic, no. So let's explain this. Oh my God, it's going so slow. Look, y'all. Oh, look, y'all. Okay. Okay, there we go. So now, I've already stated this before, but we're going to restate it again, right? So now, refuting Dicara's claim on the tropical zodiac being used for chart calculation from his faulty understanding of the use of the tropical zodiac in chapter 14, Series of Dante. So chapter one, the introduction of Sidereal zodiac of in the role of Revati, right? So now the primary use. Chapter one introduces the foundation of the zodiac systems in the series Siddhanta. It establishes that the zodiac signs are not based on equinoxes or solstices, right, as in the tropical system, but instead are tied to the fixed stars, right? The chapter specifically mentions Revati, right? Nakshatra, a fixed star, right? So now, and we've already discussed there, right? So now it establishes that the entire system of calculations, including the divisions of the zodiac into 12 signs, Rashi, which is synonymous with Ba, right, which we know, right, follow a sidereal reference based on the positions of fixed stars, not the change positions of equinoxes or solstices, right? This is for the chart calculation. I'm building into it, right? So chapter one sets the sidereal context, defining the zodiacs anchored in Revati. This directly establishes the Sirius Adontis working with the sidereal zodiac from the very start. And chapter three, Lagna and ecliptic calculation sidereal, right? Remember I said the equinox and solstice and ecliptic are different things, but they are interconnected, right? Now, let's discuss this. Chapter three. Matter of fact, let's just get to right to my last book, because you already understand. So now, well, no, you know what? No, let's look at the key point first. So now, the logarithmic calculations based on the sun's position along the ecliptic relative to the fixed stars, right? Because the time of the zodiac was set in chapter one with Revati and the 12 divisional fold, right? This ecliptic reference points to a sidereal measure of the zodiac, meaning that logna are determined by the sidereal zodiac rather than the tropical system. Now, I've already cleared up the sundial argument that he mentioned about text 12 in the actual text of the series Danta, chapter 3. So in 10 and 12, I believe you said. So now, the ecliptic positions are key to sidereal reckoning, right, as they are aligned with the fixed stars, right? So now, chapter 3 focuses on calculating the logna based on the ecliptic, further enforcing that the calculation is sidereal in nature, right, since the ecliptic relates to the fixed stars. The chapter essentially applies the foundation sidereal structure from chapter 1 to logna calculations, right? So now, chapter 3, right? Chapter 14, right? We finna talk about what he talking about. Sundial, right? In the equal in okay, I already mentioned this or whatever. The equinoctial shadow, right? So this is what I want you to understand, right? Now, chapter 14, right? Discusses and go make sure y'all read it because this is what he's gonna try to use. Make sure y'all read this. What he's gonna do when he see this and he realized that I'm really probably like a threat to his stuff, he's gonna try to critique everything that I said and pinpoint stuff that he believes I get wrong. However, I'm just gonna repost this video, and I'm such of a good debater. I will accept certain criticism if I know he's not trying to push an agenda, and I will refute what he refuted about me. So it'll just be an ongoing thing, and I will never stop. But now, chapter 14. Chapter 14 discusses solar time reckoning, right? Including how the equinox and solstice define the calendar, right? Particularly in relation to the seasons. You see what I'm saying? So now, the sun's movement relative to the equinox and solstice does not override the sidereal system used for chart calculations that's mentioned in chapter 1 going into that chapter 3 aspect, right? Solar reckoning based on the equinoxes and solstices discussed for the purposes of calculating solar months and the propitious timing of rituals, right? These are seasonal cycles unrelated to the sidereal zodiac, right? So now the main focus here is on solar timekeeping and seasonal cycles, right? Not on how zodiac signs are defined as far as like chart calculations. That's my whole point, right? Gotta add it right there. So now, the zodiac signs themselves are still rooted in the sidereal system, right? In chapter 14, focus primarily on solar recognitions of the structure of the zodiac. Not structured for the zodiac for chart calculations, right? So now you have the dilemma. You have two different definitions. That's why Vic keeps saying he he tries to say what you're saying is a contradiction. The fact is that it seems like the text is contradicting itself because it's two different definitions, right? It is, right? There's one for this purpose and one for this purpose. That's just strictly what it is, right? He just don't want to accept that. I'm not saying that there's no tropical zodiac. Vic Dicara, I salute and I agree with you. There's a tropical zodiac, right? On the hub of the actual solstice and equinox. I agree with that. However, Vic, I want you to take a more logical, rational understanding with this as well, right? Are the physical star zodiac constellations, which are sidereal stars, aren't they on the fixed path of the sun's ecliptic? Divorced from the equinox and solstice, aren't the true sidereal zodiac signs, as far as the actual constellation reference, aren't they on the actual fixed ecliptic? I'm just saying. So, and you can't even refute that point. You cannot refute that point at all because that will be a lie. You know damn well that the physical constellations are still on the path of the ecliptic. There is no way you can refute that at all. So guess what? Those zodiac signs are still fixed to the sun's path, and that is the truth. That's the truth. That's literally the truth, right? So now, so chapter 14 is about solar time, keeping the seasonal cycle, but it does not interfere with the zodiac. Sidereal zodiac sign used for logging calculations of planetary positions. So yes, y'all listen. And I want you to understand. So no contradictions. Both systems, sidereal and tropical, exist side by side without affecting each other, right? The sidereal doesn't change based on season equinoxes, right? The equinoxes only help in defining solar months in chapter 14 for timekeeping, right? Chapter 1 sets the framework for astrological calculations with the fixed stars. That's all I'm trying to say. So Vic, so listen, I'll give you something that can help both of y'all. If you want to use tropical zodiac, since it is mentioned, yes, then you can use it, right? However, the logging calculations from Vahamira's work and Sirius Dante kind of match what I'm talking about. I'm just saying. But since there is mention of a zodiac, that he's doing this. Since there is mention of a zodiac from the equinoctial solstice, that means we should only use it. I'm like, okay, but he's not looking at it in a more nuanced occultic aspect. Vic, why do you think that we're still using it from the ancient way? You said appeal to tradition. Yeah, we appealing to tradition, right? You're appealing to tradition as well, right? Because Sirius Sardanta is an old book, right? The tradition that you're appealing to is that the zodiac sign is defined by the actual equinox and solstice, right? That you didn't make it up. You get that from tradition. You're appealing to a tradition. You're saying we're appealing to a tradition by keeping both of them merged, right? However, like I just said, the physical constellations are still on the physical path of the ecliptic, and that is true, right? And the way they map them is mathematical divisions, like how Aslation is in Hydra constellation, which is not Cancer constellation, but it's still on the ecliptic in the actual angle, and it takes that and it formulates it both together in celestial framework. That's just what it is, right? So now let's read some of this stuff that I'm talking about. So now we talk about the precession of the equinoxes, right? So now listen. Hold up. So now, this is precession equinox. So now, Earth has a slow wobble, right? So now, the tropical is 0 degrees Aries, but you got to remember Aries, inside Deer, they drift apart. About 1 degree every 72 years, right? And once they go on all the way on a 360-degree circle, they'll land back on top of each other once again, right? You see what I'm saying? So now, in the past, around the start of the common era, the vernal equinox fell right on the fixed star boundary that the Vedic astrologers called the end of Bravati or star of Ashwini, right? Today, those two 0 points have separated about 24 degrees. So now the Ayanamsha, the tropical 0 degree Aries now sits in late Pisces, right? So now, in the far future, once precession carries a 24 degree gap all the way around back to the 0 point, the tropical and sidereal will once again both come together. Real talk, right? So yes, they were aligned before, but they've since drifted apart. In another 25 of 1,000 years, they'll be perfectly aligned once more. You understand that? So now the ancient rishis mapped the sky with math, not just sight, right? Because Vic argue, well, it's not 100% observably verifiable. I covered that in my last video, but I'll briefly touch on it here. So now they divided the sun's path into 360 degrees, right? A perfect circle, right? Which was stated right back where? Because the sun is a graha or a planet, right? They stated that in chapter 1, Sirius Dante, right? 360 degrees, right? See what I'm saying? Perfect circle, right? Even though the actual stars groups are uneven, right? So they said no matter how the stars look, we will divide the space equally, so it's easier to measure and predict, right? Each Rashi is exactly 30 degrees, which chapter 1 series Dante says. Even if some constellations are bigger or smaller, right? Because the thing about it is, so Sidereal is still star based, but it's not true star based, right? It's a mathematical division, right? I'm just saying. So now each nakshatra is exactly 13 degrees, 20 minutes, right? Even if the stars inside move slightly over time, right? So now nakshatras were anchored to the ecliptic, not to the actual pictures, right? So now, the nakshatras were a set of fixed degree ranges along the ecliptic, right? The bright stars were just used as markers to help people find those ranges in the sky, right? Even if the star patterns drift slightly, the math for the nakshatra degrees still stayed the same, right? Because that one little star, like Ravati, Pisces is this big. You mean tell me that one little star is 13 degrees? No, that's what I'm saying, y'all. You got to understand, it's a different mathematical segment component to it. That's the thing, right? So now, stability over 1,000 years, they know stars move very slowly, but by using mathematical division, right, they make sure astrology will stay stable over 1,000 years, even if the sky changed a little, right? So now, the thing about it is, Vic might use piranhas and all this other stuff. The thing about it is, none of that stuff is what we're talking about, or birth chart calculations, horoscopes. That is what I'm saying. So now, why is the equinox now starting in Pisces and not Aries? Because he's like, well, the zodiac starts from Aries, where that shit is show shifting, right? So now, thousands of years, the vernal equinox lined up with 0 degree Aries at the border between Ravati, Pisces, and Ashwini, right? Because precession, the slow wobble, the equinox moved backwards about one every 72 years. Over 2,000 years, it has drifted about 24 degrees backwards. I mean, 24 degrees backwards, right? Now the sun is at the equinox while it's still in Sidereal Pisces zone and not Aries anymore. Yeah, so I just really want you all to really truly understand that. And for the last thing, Ayana Baba, man, listen. So BPHS is a sidereal text completely. The fact that we even have Ayana Bala there shows you that it's a sidereal text. I think Vic tried to downplay that in the comment section or on one of his videos, something like that. But check this out. So now, Ayana Bala, what is it? So now, in a tropical system, the signs are permanently tied to the equinox and solstice, right? The planet seasonal positions would already be built into where the planet appeared in the zodiac, right? So this is the thing about it. The strength related to the Earth's tilt would automatically be baked into the actual sign placement itself, right? There will be no need to separately measure a planet's declination strength Ayana Bala does, right? So now Ayana is another word for it's either solstice or equinox. I'm trying. It's one of them, right? So now, if BPAS is saying, listen, you need to see how strong or what type of influence you get from Ayana, which is the equinox or the solstice, whichever word that's showing you that is inherently not what it's trying to see how strong it is with, right? I'm just saying. But BPHS does have a separate category called Ayana Bala that proves that the sign planet in the Rashis is placed first by the fixed stars, not the seasonal equinox, right? Just saying. After placing the planet sidereally, BPHS checks how much strength the Earth's seasonal tilt is giving or taking away, right? Yes, so yes, y'all, listen. Yeah, so now this thing about it, he keeps saying fixed, right? So now this goes back to my point from the beginning of the video. Completely misunderstanding what fixed actually is, right? So now he keeps saying that the tropical zodiac is the only fixed zodiac because it stays aligned with the seasons, which we can see is Pisces starts to run an equinox now. But now check this out. But what he is doing is ignoring the star constellation. Aries, Taurus, Gemini are permanently wrapped around the ecliptic, right? They are fixed in space and they are not drifting like the equinox. And that is true, right? I don't know how he could refute that. The ecliptic path, right? You see what I'm saying? The zodiac constellations were mapped onto the ecliptic thousands of years ago and they remain tied to it forever. So now it is the Earth's wobble that causes the equinox to slowly shift backwards through the zodiac, not the stars moving away from the ecliptic, right? So now the stars are fixed, the equinox move, and the constellations stay locked to the actual seasonal backwards, right? Real talk. So yes, y'all. So now you all have a really, really good in-depth understanding. You should watch all three of my refutations, right? And these are other blogs that I do have on him as well. You know, I got more posts right here on the blog. Or yes, yes, and listen. A matter of fact, don't be scared to come in and like I said, and listen, and come follow me on my social media, right? Oh, you know, it's not right there. Hold on. Let me go back to one of my other ones. Let me go back to my. Okay, I think it should be the one I posted the other day. In 1 second, y'all. I hate when I'm trying to find stuff to show people stuff, and then they don't want to show up. But y'all, well, y'all should know my social medias by now. Y'all should know my social medias by now. So yes, y'all, listen. Thing about it is, y'all, so now, to end it all, is there a tropical zodiac? Yes. I don't know why Vickies keep trying to push that. But did they ever say in any text use it for tropical chart calculations? No, they did not. Unlike the text that I showed by different authors, Samhita, I mean the Brihat Samhita, Pancha Siddhantika, and then the Brahmasutra Siddhanta. And BPHS even says when he argued with Pantho or Panthero, whatever his name was, the Indian guy, he was like, well, it says in BPHS chapter 3 that the zodiac and the nakshatras commence from Ashwini Aries. If Vic was trying to wordplay it and say it says no, it says ID from Aries and so on, something like that. So, but I still believe that, but that matches up with everything that I just showed. Also, the Brihat Jataka that I also showed. It all matches up in line. So when he say there is no Sidereal, well, he has to refute all these ancient texts. All of these ancient texts. Notice he never touches on any of these ancient texts in full because you want to know why? Because in these texts, like I just pointed out, they show you the nakshatra and zodiac signs being merged, and it's a whole damn book about everything on how to use them, on how to see them, and other stuff involved for astrology purpose specifically. So of course he's not gonna really mention that. He's gonna go to Sirius Dunta and say, well, this is the oldest astronomy book. He still ignores chapter 1 and chapter 3 and how they're interlinked and how they're connected. Then he used chapter 14 and saying this is the end all be all. So yes, he just needed somebody to really come and challenge him and knew what he was talking about at all levels. That's why I had to make sure I hit every single thing that he was saying completely. So if he has any, Vic, if you have any more refutation or any of the people who love to watch him, please DM me or comment under my video. And if you all want to be destroyed again, I would be delighted to actually give you the whooping that you all need. It is what it is. But other than that, like, share, subscribe. This is my final refutation until further notice. I'm just waiting on him to say something back and defend himself, and I'm gonna pick apart everything he defend himself. But as you all can see, I will give him his credit on what he was saying. But I'm just like, you still looking at it in a very kind of misinterpreted way. So yes, y'all listen. But other than that, I have nothing else left to say. So you all have a good day. And if you want birth chart readings from me, please let me know. And goodbye.